It's time to go into business for yourself. Get ready for another episode of the Franchise Academy Podcast. Education, insight, and inspiration. Here's your host, small business and franchise expert, Tom Scarda.
Welcome to another episode of the Franchise Academy Podcast. I am Tom Scarda, franchise advisor and coach. If you listened to the podcast before, you know that I am a consultant that matches people with franchise opportunities based on skills, personality, and goals. Kind of like the eHarmony of business is what I like to call it. And I work with folks all over the country who are frustrated with their career, people that cringe at the thought of going to work in the morning. And I work with people that want to also diversify their investments and maybe own a franchise with some good cash flow. So it's all about low investment, high margin businesses that are easy to operate, Amazon proof, and even, believe it or not, pandemic proof. So let's talk about that if that is something you're thinking about. I have a special show tonight. So today I'm bringing in Kari Schwear. Kari is the CEO and founder of Tonic.com. So Kari spent her most of her professional life helping people find their story, the story they want to tell about the choices they make in their life. For the past 2 decades, she's helped companies grow by finding new ways to serve clients. Kari believes the best way for a company to expand is to help its clients expand. So she founded Great Tonic, which is Question the Drink, or QTD, in 2018. And this is for professionals like herself that are using alcohol as a coping mechanism for stress. So Kari is always on the go, which stems from her favorite place to be, which is on a racetrack driving Porsches. Kari, welcome.
Thanks for having me, Tom.
This is so crazy. So driving Porsches on the racetrack?
Oh, yes. That's a side of me you haven't heard about yet. Oh, yes. Yeah. I grew up with Porsches. My parents had them growing up. I worked for Porsche. Actually, I was one of the pace car drivers at our customer days that we had on the racetrack at Virginia International Raceway, because I live in Richmond, Virginia. Yeah, I'm a great driver.
Oh, my goodness. And probably drive a badass getaway car if you needed to. So.
Yeah, absolutely. I did have a Porsche. I did sell it last year, but yes, the plan is to get another one. Actually, we're thinking possibly of doing something like a Ferrari or Lamborghini at some point in the future, but we'll see. We'll see. It's on the vision board.
Yeah, right. I love those goals, man. Put it on the vision board.
Yep.
Do it. If you want it, the world is your oyster, right? You can do whatever you like.
That's right. That's right. You set your attention and have the alignment, and who knows? It might just come your way.
Just be in that vibration.
That's right.
So I wanted to bring you on because, pandemic 2020 is upon us and we're kind of coming out of it now. But, people have been locked up for a long time in their houses and there's a lot of stress. But aside from that, as a business owner, whether you're the president of a franchise company or you're a franchisee, it comes with a lot of daily stress. And I know that even like myself, and I have friends that are in business and just professionals in general, they need to, take the edge off. So with dinner, they might have a glass of wine. And then 6 months later, it's 3 glasses of wine. Mm-hmm. But they're fine. They're not alcoholics. Is this kind of what you're talking about when you talk about Great Tonic?
Yes, absolutely. So I really speak on what gray area drinking is and being in the gray area in general. So when we start to use any sort of self-sabotaging behaviors for our coping, this is when we can fall into the gray area. So let me define that for you, a gray area drinker. It is somebody who is more than a social drinker, but they're not an alcoholic. So they're in this in-between space, which is about 50% of the people who consume alcohol are in the gray area. So that's a lot of drinkers. And now with COVID, alcohol use is up about 67%.
Wow.
Meth use is actually up about 200%. So we are in a place right now where this is very serious. There's a lot of mental health concerns with people right now. And rightfully so. We're in a very weird place. A lot of us have never experienced anything quite like this. I'm in my 50s and I've never experienced it. So this is very new for a lot of people.
Yeah, well, I think it's new for everybody, unless you were alive in, when was it, 1918 for that pandemic.
Yes.
But, of course, we did have Ebola and we had SARS but it never shut us down the way it shut down, the United States, let alone the rest of the world. And that comes with a ton of stress. Anytime there's anything new is stress. And so, give me a drink. And it's so embedded in our culture in America, have a drink.
Yes, yes. And you just brought something else up, which is really important too. And a lot of it is societal messaging and influence. And we've become a society that it's not only accepted, it's almost expected. So when we go to a networking event or we go to a social event, it's very rare that alcohol is not served. It's quite the norm that alcohol is. So if you're choosing not to drink, or you are in that pool of being what we call quote unquote sober curious, and you're thinking about maybe moderating your drinking, there's not a whole lot of choices outside of iced tea, water, and soda for people. So then it becomes this, well, I probably will just have one drink, which if somebody is in the gray area, it is hard just to have one. It's more like 2, maybe 3, and then you're getting behind the wheel, driving home, and then you're feeling guilty because you put yourself at risk and your family. And so there's a psychological sort of spinning in our minds that happens when we start to fall into the gray area, before one becomes physically and psychologically dependent on alcohol. That, of course, would be somebody who's an alcoholic. But we can, really feel like we're in this confused, stuck place when we're in the gray area. So it is a place for, someone to start paying attention to their motivators, their thinking that's surrounding the drinking. Why are they using it? What are they escaping from? Are they using it for a coping mechanism? What is the real reason why someone's drinking? So those are some of the questions that I challenge my clients with.
That's amazing to me. And I know so many people that, as I said, they want to take the edge off a little bit. And they're, I always thought of them as functioning alcoholics, but you're saying that they're not alcoholics.
Well, it's a fine line, right? So there's a gray area within that. So we need to be careful when we start putting labels on people. I think it's important that we do recognize that this gray area exists, and it's a wide spectrum of drinkers. So the definition of somebody who's truly addicted, that would be in the alcohol realm, or alcoholism realm rather, is somebody who is physically and psychologically dependent. Now, we can argue that a gray area drinker is also psychologically dependent on alcohol because it is a habitual process. But when we talk about alcoholism and it's a physical dependency, in other words, somebody wouldn't be able to survive a day without drinking, or that they, have the shakes if they don't drink. And there's a stronger connection to it. There's this, before you get to that place, you could be in this gray area as we're talking about. As somebody who is not an alcoholic, I want to make sure that that's really clear and that does not identify as an alcoholic.
Right. And so you're not like, Alcoholics Anonymous or anything like that, but what is your role if somebody was to contact you and say, I really want to curb what I'm doing, I'm ashamed of drinking too much or whatever, I don't know.
Right. Well, I'm glad you brought up Alcoholics Anonymous, because I do want to speak on that just for a moment. First and foremost, I did go to AA when I quit drinking. I quit drinking in 2016, and there was nobody like me, at least that I was aware of back then. There's a lot of people like me now, but there wasn't that I was aware of. So I went the traditional route. And while it was very good for me in terms of having some tips and tools and having some commonality, I didn't resonate with being an alcoholic. I didn't want to say I was an alcoholic. And I really found that it was not a good fit for me. I was truly a gray area drinker, so it was a misalignment. And I bring that up because Alcoholics Anonymous is a fantastic program. It's been around since the 1930s. It hasn't changed much since the 1930s. Their principles are the same. And while that's great, it is designed for people that need recovery and that are alcoholics. I work with people who are looking for discovery. So I say that I'm not recovery, I'm discovery. So I work with those that are in the gray area that are particularly looking to improve all areas of their life, not just their drinking, because the drinking is just one added layer. It's always something else deeper, and that can impact not only their personal life, their professional life. It can also affect the relationships, in all different areas. So it's not just one thing. It's not, let's just work on the drinking and your life will be perfect, because that's only a very small portion of it. And some of my clients don't quit drinking. Some of them can moderate after a time. Some end up quitting because they realize alcohol doesn't need to play a part in their life at all.
Right.
It really depends.
So I think you hit on a really important point, in my opinion, in kind of the recovery and addiction space, where a lot of people are like, oh, that guy's he's addicted to cocaine, he's a loser, or whatever it might be. And it's not being a loser. It's something that some kind of space they're trying to fill that's missing in their life, some kind of self-pain, some kind of self-hatred even. And so you find out what people that are great drinkers as well?
It can be, yes. Most gray area drinkers also, and I do want to speak on this, don't appear from the outside world that they have any sort of problem going on. They're very high functioning usually, and it's a very secretive thing. If somebody has this deep inner questioning that's going on deep inside, and they're, it's almost like as soon as a voice comes up for them, they push it away, like, oh, no, that can't be me. I don't want to have to quit drinking. I don't want to have to be in that place. Then that might be the first signs that's telling you might want to take a look at your gray area drinking. And so when somebody does come to me, by that point, it is somebody who isn't ready for recovery like AA. They don't want to go down that path, and they're quite embarrassed. They're ashamed of where they're at. And because sometimes they don't think they're that bad for a program like AA or these other things, they stay quiet, they stay hidden, and then it progressively becomes worse over time. So it is something that is worth paying attention to if you have those deep inner questions. And so when people do come to me, it is, of course, very private. It's a one-on-one setting. I work with clients for 3 months. I offer daily support, meaning that we're in contact with each other every day, even if it's just for a couple minutes. And then we have a 75 to a 90-minute call every week to go over some of the things that we're working on together. So it's a program in the sense that it's a coaching session type environment. It's very one-on-one. It's a concierge service. And then, of course, I do corporate training for businesses that are looking to improve stress-related issues and coping mechanisms, and just having some cohesiveness within the workplace.
That's so cool. I got so many questions. Oh my goodness. So, so you have programs? Could somebody sign up for a program like that? Do you have that kind of thing?
Yes. For individual coaching, I have them usually go through a Decide series that I've created, which is a 7-day series. And that's just to see if they're ready to make the shift in their life, having the desire and having a commitment, and are they ready to invest in themselves with time and sometimes resources? And are they in a place where they want to be able to tell a story on why they made the shift? So having all those things in place, then I know that they're ready to continue with having a call and then going through a coaching program. As far as corporate training, that could be a lunch and learn. It could be a virtual presentation. It could be a 2-day workshop. It's very customizable for the organization, what they're looking for. A lot of times it's just basic overall knowledge on terms of stress and coping and what we can do as far as behavioral patterns go. And a lot of it has to do with our thoughts and our nervous system. And so I teach them some exercises to do and some practical tips for them to take with them. And that affects in all areas of their life. So really talking about not just overall balance, but also improving on where we need to dial the lever up a little bit higher when needed and a little bit lower when needed. So it's just about regulation and really feeling what's going to work for that person.
So if somebody's listening to this right now, and they're questioning their drinking, is there a threshold that they need to meet in order to like talk to somebody like you, or is it a threshold that's so high that they need to bypass you, go straight to AA? You know, it's like, oh, I only have one drink a day with dinner. Is that still gray? Is it quantitative at all?
Yeah, so part of the program, the Decide series that I just mentioned, is a way to see if that they're truly a gray area drinker. If they are physically dependent on alcohol, like I said, and it's something that they, have to have a drink, or they're going to have the shakes, or they're really abusing alcohol. They're drinking excessively every day. That is not somebody that I would feel comfortable working with, only because that's not where I specialize in. I specialize in the place of the gray area in all coping mechanisms, not just alcohol. I focus on alcohol because that was my story, but that doesn't mean everybody needs to, have a quote unquote problem with drinking. It could be any sort of thing. Even toxic relationships, Tom, is another type of coping mechanism that we do. So people may not think of that.
Oh, yeah. What is that? Wait a second.
Yeah. So toxic relationships, meaning that you're staying in a relationship, whether it's a marriage or a partnership, a work partnership, something that is causing you stress, but it seems harder to move out of that than it is to work through it. So we therefore just stay in a relationship just because it's easier, as opposed to getting to the tough questions and moving through it. So that's one way people actually cope, is they rather stay safe and know what they know than moving out of what they don't know, which is fear. And that's what stops a lot of people.
It's fear of the unknown, right?
That's right.
It's sort of like what I share with people when they're buying a franchise. You could be in a job and your boss is just a really bad person, or the company's really bad. You're questioning the ethics, but you stay there because if you quit, you don't know what's next. So it's not the choice of, what job to have. Is the choice between uncertainty or unhappiness. And most people will choose unhappiness because it's easier.
Yes, absolutely. And that is so common. You just brought up a really good example. It is very, very true. People have been in a job, but they hate it, but they have great benefits. They make good money. They have decent hours. They have some flexibility, but yet they're completely unfulfilled and miserable. And so the idea of leaving excites them on one hand, but then on the other hand, they have this complete fear that keeps them frozen and stuck. And that's really having two incongruent thoughts and that are battling with each other. So that's one example of somebody that I like to work with, because I help them through that entire process of what that might mean for them. Because everything that we want is in the unknown. Everything we want. It's just having the courage to step, into that courage and out of fear. But, sometimes you just need a good push.
Yeah. So, you're like a courage catalyst.
Yes.
You help people gain that courage through different techniques. So if somebody's listening again right now, and they're in a toxic relationship, or they are a great drinker, or whatever it might be, they're addicted to Ben and Jerry's New York
ice cream. Absolutely.
Ice cream.
Yes.
Guilty.
Yes. Oh, we all have something. Trust me. My fix right now is dark chocolate, Lindt dark chocolate.
I mean, everybody has something. It's so true.
Absolutely.
We don't look at, I remember Deepak Chopra, who was one of my favorite people in the world, said that the number one addiction that goes totally unnoticed is shopping.
Oh, yes.
And now with Amazon, it could be Christmas every day.
That's right. That's a good example. Sugar is another one. Sugar is very, very addicting. So we all have something. Nobody's without something, I always say. And that's very true. But for those that are truly questioning the drink and questioning their relationship with alcohol, that is, definitely pay attention to those little voices. And
I'm sorry, I cut you off. Go ahead.
That's okay. I was going to say that I have a movement called Question the Drink, and it's really to support those that are in the gray area. And it's about a lifestyle change. It means living in a cleaner life, if you will, and that's on all areas. That's not just eating healthier or exercising more. It's about a full self-improvement journey, and alcohol is in that equation of how does alcohol serve you currently in your life? Is it positive or is it negative? Because some people can have a glass or two of wine here and there, and it's not a big deal. And for those people that like to enjoy wine ever so often, or a beer or martini or whatever, that's fine. But for those that are feeling like they're in the gray area, then it's a place to step back and say, well, what might this look like for me?
Yeah. Well, before we tie this all up, is there any exercise that you could give somebody here via this podcast that might help if they're kind of in a weird area in their life right now?
Yes. My favorite thing, you're just going to think it's so elementary, but it works every time, is to get out a piece of paper, draw a line down the center, put pros on one side, cons on the other, and write it out and look at it. Because if you're questioning either a relationship or a self-sabotaging behavior that you're doing, and weighing out the options on what that might look like if you quit or stayed or altered it in one way or the other. If you really look at it on paper, that's a great place to start to really question yourself. And I did that when I was questioning the drink. I wrote out a piece of paper, reasons to stop drinking, reasons that I want to keep drinking. And my reasons to keep drinking were all the same. They sort of went like this. I love it. It tastes so good. I have fun with my friends. I can go places and fun places with my friends. I mean, it was ridiculous. It was all surrounded about social life and friends. It's like, if I don't drink, I don't have a life. I have no friends, basically, is what my mindset was. The other side of the coin was reasons why I should consider quit drinking. I don't know, like save my life was number one. Healthier skin, healthier mind. I won't act like an idiot. I won't put myself in a risky situation such as a DUI. I won't possibly lose my marriage. I will save X amount of dollars a week. I was spending about $150 a week on wine. I had great taste, so there you go. Let's not even go down the bourbon trail, because bourbon can be very expensive too. So there was multiple reasons on why it was more beneficial for me to really take a look at my drinking and make the conscious decision. So I didn't have a rock bottom. Most gray area drinkers don't. They don't have rock bottoms. They don't have the life-altering events that force them into making a decision. So how powerful is that? When you get to make the choice. And drinking is a choice for gray area drinkers.
So true. And I think you just hit on something I never thought about before, is that people just go along life without having that rock bottom, and it's slowly eating them away over 40, 50 years, as opposed to somebody that goes hard and, gets a DUI, and now you're like, all right, I got to start thinking about what I'm doing here.
Yes.
So I never thought about it like that. That's so interesting.
Yes. And I've had clients that have had a few DUIs, and they, that wasn't enough, right? And so everybody has their own definition of what it means to have their own enough.
Right.
My son had a DUI. That was his enough. That's what finally, he said, alcohol doesn't play a part in my life anymore.
Yeah.
For me, I didn't have that. My own enough, which I don't mind sharing, was that same son I just mentioned to you. I had some pretty choice words with him one night after an all-day drinking binge. It was on July 4th, 2016. And I don't remember saying half the things that I said to him, but he reminded me the next day, those things that I said. And I'll just say that that's nothing that a mother should ever say to their child. And I was devastated. I mean, devastated. So I was already questioning. I was in the pre-contemplation stage for 2 years about looking at my drinking. And then by the time he said that to me, I moved into the contemplation stage. And then about a week before I actually quit drinking is when I moved into the preparation stage of, okay, what is this going to look like if I don't drink? And the last night I drank a lot. I drank, it's kind of like going on a diet, and you eat tons before you go on the diet. I think I had close to 2 bottles of wine that night. And I woke up the next morning, and that was it. I said, I'm done. So everybody has their story. Everybody has their own definition of what that looks like. But most gray area drinkers don't necessarily have a rock bottom, a typical rock bottom that you would think of when we think of somebody that, is in dire straits that finally gets help. And that's why it's really important to have this conversation, to talk about what the gray area is, because we don't want to get to that place.
Right.
Nobody wakes up and, or is born and says, oh gosh, I can't wait to grow up and be an alcoholic or an addict. It's not something that anybody wants. It just happens. And nobody is immune to it. Nobody.
It's true. A lot of times they say, oh, but, people with addictive personalities get addicted to drugs. And I don't think that's the case. I think it's the person who feels like they're not enough or they're not worthy, and they have this pain because they grew up in an atmosphere that made them feel like that, or they actually were told that by their parents. They become addicted to something to try to quell the pain of that. And so it's not because somebody's a loser or because they have an addictive personality. In my opinion, I'm not a psychologist. I don't know, but I have, have had my own experience with things. So
yes. Yeah. And you're right. A lot of it has to do with our limiting beliefs that we've been holding on to since we're children, because most of our thoughts and beliefs are formed before the age of 7. So they become our truth, and it becomes our guiding north through our life. And until we're able to deal with those and hit them head on, because a lot of people will numb out their feelings and escape. And this is why they're using coping aids, because they don't want to feel bad. And there lies the problem. We've never been taught how to deal with our emotions and our feelings. So therefore we brush them off. We deal with it. We're not designed to deal with the stress that we're under today. I mean, even before COVID, right? We're such a fast-paced country and world that we've never been taught how to appropriately process and deal with our stress and our overwhelm in a constructive, healthy manner. It's always like, let's just do more. Let's pile more stuff on. We're passing that same mentality onto our kids, more sports, more clubs to join, more this. And I think we need to take a step back. And I believe COVID has forced us to do that. And so in a lot of ways, for how stressful COVID has made things, it also has been a beautiful blessing and a gift that we can see that we, taking a step back, can actually feel really good. And we can focus on the things that really matter, like family and just your health in general. I mean, it's a wake-up call.
I agree totally. Even the planet itself, the earth itself.
Oh, yes.
Took a breath.
Absolutely.
Pollution.
Apparently the hole is in the ozone layer has been closed up, apparently, they said. So.
Is that right?
Yeah, I heard that. So I don't know if it's true. I don't quote me on it, but I've heard that that's true. Yeah. And they can see the Himalayan mountains, apparently. So.
Right. That I heard for sure.
Yeah. Yeah. So.
Yeah. Amazing.
Beautiful blessings are to be had. We just need to take a step back and look for them. So, because we're so focused on all the things that we can't do right now and we can't have. And, we got to focus on the things that we can. And so one of the things also with drinking, for an example, I usually will say to my client, listen, it's a choice for you. If you want to drink, you can drink. It's a choice. You can have it. Right. But by saying I'm choosing not to drink versus I can't drink, I mean, just feels so completely different. It's just a 2 millimeter distinction of a complete mind shift, right? So when we approach things in a level that is so on point for that person, and they start to put these mindset principles into play, changes everything. And that's the work that I love to do, because if we can help people process that, oh my gosh, what a beautiful place this would be. Yeah. Wow. I love it. So on that note, how can people get in touch with you, Kari? The best way is on my website, which is graytonic.com. It's GRAYTONIC. I'm on all social media channels, but honestly, graytonic.com is the best place. You'll find everything there. I love connecting with new people. So if you're interested in reaching out, go through the Decide program. It's on the homepage. You'll see it. It's a 7-day email series. It's really quick. 1 to 2 minute videos every day to see if you are ready to make the shift. And if you're a corporation or business and looking to improve on your employees' morale and their personal life and how they're dealing with stress and coping, please let me know. I'd love to be able to support you. Yeah, that's great. And so I highly recommend, Kari, anyone who's listening,
any franchise companies out there. Great speaker for your convention. So definitely ring up Kari. She'll do a great job for you. I've seen her in action. And by the way, your Instagram is phenomenal. I love the Instagram stories that you're doing. And so it's really helpful to me personally. So
thanks, Tom. Thank you so much. I appreciate you.
Thank you, Kari. And God bless you.
God bless you as well.
I look forward to talking to you very soon.
Awesome. Thanks so much.
Thanks. Bye-bye.
Bye.
This has been another episode of the Franchise Academy Podcast. For more info, go to our website, thefranchiseacademypodcast.com. Remember to subscribe to Tom Scarda's YouTube channel for educational videos on franchising, education, insight, and inspiration.